President John Dramani Mahama has assented to a number of legislative bills abolishing several taxes, including the electronic transfer levy, that's the controversial e-levy, betting tax, and emissions tax. While in opposition, the NDC, led by the flag bearer and now President John Dramani Mahama, promised to abolish some taxes to give relief to Ghanaians. At a short ceremony at the seat of government, the president delivered yet again a promise he made. Let's now walk you through the number of bills that were accented into law today, and Michael Ogbodo. So the three business here at TV3 and on 3FM 92.7. Join me in the studio right now. Michael, just run us through the list of bills accented into law today by the president earlier today.
So top on the list is, I guess, arguably the most popular bill ever introduced in this country. By some, that's the electronic transfer levy. The one bill that both parties, major political parties, agreed to scrap once they assume office or attain power. And John Dramani Mahama, effective today, has signed the e-levy repeal bill. So effectively, e-levy ceases to exist in the books of the country. The emissions levy repeal bill has also been accented to the betting tax, value-added tax amendment bill, income tax amendment bill, public financial management amendment bill, growth and sustainability Levy Act, the earmarked funds capping and realignment bill, the gold board bill, energy sector levy act, and the petroleum revenue amendment bill. So a quite tall list, but it just shows you that the president has been very busy today assenting to all of these bills. So we know that the e-levy, like I said from the beginning, a very controversial one. We know government to be losing some 2 billion cedis with the scrapping of that bill. The emissions levy also received some uproar because people were arguing that why is the government deciding to charge taxes in the name of trying to clean up the air and not giving enough motivation for people to switch to other greener options. So the emissions levy is also going off. There's the betting tax that a lot of the youth had kicked against, arguing that why must you tax me my wins if you don't compensate me for my loss. There's a value added tax amendment bill also on the VAT on insurance that also has been repealed. It's a big one too for the insurance industry because it means that insurance will be relatively cheaper without that tax in place. There's an income tax amendment bill which also has the betting tax within it in terms of the earnings, and then also a percentage was charged also on gold purchases from small-scale miners. Then there's the public financial management amendment bill. The other one also that made a lot of headways after it was announced, the growth and sustainability levy act. You know that act in the bill, the government sought to tax the extractive sector more, increase the rate from 1% to 3% for the extractive sector. So persons in the mining industry will have to pay about 3% higher than their counterparts in the banking and other sectors who are also charged the growth and sustainability levy. There's the earmarked funds capping, and then also the gold board also bill basically legitimizing the gold board, and then the energy sector levy and the petroleum levy. So basically these are the levies that the president has officially signed into law.
And if you look at the increase in that 1% to 3% growth and sustainability levy act for the mining sector, you've been engaging the Ghana Chamber of Mines. They are not too excited about this decision. Why is that?
So basically this is going to increase their cost of operations basically because it means that their tax elements, their tax expenditures are going to go up. They argue that they think that their times are quite tough, so increasing the levy at this point is not the best for them. However, they say that per their engagements with government, government has managed to get some level of buy-in for them, arguing that these are tough times and the government needs the revenue to run the country. So their efforts to get a review didn't work out, but they say that they are open to continue to support government's efforts to revamp the economy. So basically that.
Great stuff. Thank you so much, Michael Ogbodo. And there's going to be more of this on the business news later this evening, and then also on News 360 at 7 p.m. So make a date with the team with the details there. And Dr. George Domfe is a senior lecturer, Economics Department, University of Ghana, Legon. And Professor John Gatsi is the Dean of the University of Cape Coast Business School, joining me on Zoom and on telephone, respectively. Gentlemen, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Good evening, my brother.
Hello, Dr. John Domfe, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Good evening.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us. And, well, as promised, has been delivered today. The president has accented to these bills to become law. The e-levy will be off our books, effective tomorrow. From what we understand, the GRA is going to kickstart these processes. And then also, from what we do know, the emissions tax, there was really no implementation of that tax because the DVLA, the collection agency, did not calibrate its systems to effect that tax. So there's no monies as yet. Now, from your own reading, there's certainly this was supposed to happen. E-levy, from the way things were playing out, a good decision, you would say?
Alfred, let me thank you and say very good evening to our dear listeners. Yes, you can look at it from two perspectives. Politically, I think it is a good decision. Many have said it was a bad levy, and some have even said that was the main reason why 2022 Ghanaians were struggling. And we all admit things were really very bad. 2022, we were hit hard by the global economic turmoil. It was during the heat of this, and the government trying to, address the problem, and they had to resort to, bringing on board these taxes so we could mobilize more revenue. Politically, I think it didn't give good name to the then government, and so NDC then in opposition took advantage to promise Ghanaians that they will scrap it if they have the opportunity to be voted into power. And true to their words, they have done that. So let me commend the president for, not disappointing the people. He promised to scrap it. He has done it. And so that's a very big thing when it comes to the political game. Again, I must say that another one that has also gone along with it is the emission tax. And it is important that we tell Ghanaians that even though in law it was there, this was never implemented. It is just like the 10% withholding tax on lottery winnings that was announced in the budget that is going to be scrapped. Again, that was also in the law, but it was never, implemented. And so now that he has scrapped them, good for Ghana. Everybody is going to be happy because I think Ghanaians, we are very happy not to even pay taxes. And I've always gone back to our history when at the time Rawlings was introducing VAT. Many stood against it. I'm telling you, if VAT had not been introduced at that time, and today we are still doing sales tax, I don't know where this country would have been. So it was a very good decision, but people never liked it. And here we are today. VAT has been very helpful. But this exercise, Alfred, the most important thing that I would look at it is that MDC and MPP, which of these two parties love taxes? Do they hate taxes? Do they love taxes? Sometimes I get confused because we saw what happened in 2015 April when we had to subscribe to IMF extended credit facility when we were in danger like we were in 2022. Immediately, government had to introduce so many taxes. Taxes on condom, car taxes, so many of them. So 2017, Ken Ufuriata had to scrap so many of these taxes. So the very things that we had 2017, at that time they called them, they had named that they called them nuisance taxes. Almost about 17 of them, either they were scrapped or their rates were reduced. That was what we saw 2017. And then later in years, we came back to the problem we found ourselves in 2015. And now a new government that has scrapped taxes and had become very popular now had to introduce taxes. And then the other one that had introduced more 2015 now took a different position, the same position MPP took in 2015. And so sometimes I get confused. Why are we not consistent? If we think tax is not good, let's find ways. How do we then rake in more revenue? Because I'm telling you, this e-levy, I wish the two political parties had put their heads together to maybe work on it and implement it. Maybe reduce the rate from 1% it is today to about 0.2 or 0.3, anything, because it has a future. E-levy has a future, and I have said that it will come again. It may be in a different form. It has a future. Many transactions are taking place electronically, and that's how every government does their things. Ghana today, the tax to GDP, GDP ratio is very low. it hovers around 13.9%, and the West African, the sub-regional average is 18%. So we are not even doing up to the sub-regional average. We are not doing much, and the main problem is that those who have to pay tax, the tax burden is so much on them. They are paying so much, and so many are not paying. But if you look at e-levy, it has a different, even though it may have its own problem. The good thing about it is that it was broader compared to many other taxes. So many people were paying an e-levy, unlike some of the existing taxes where only few people pay. And so I would have wished that the government, instead of scrapping it, would have looked at the rate, bring it down to about 5%, or at best, now I hear the first 100 cedis transaction doesn't attract e-levy. Maybe we could have pushed it to 500 so that the poor will be protected in that situation. But scrapping it off when we still, as a country, we are still struggling with revenue mobilization, I think politically, yes, you scored a point, but economically, I don't think that's the way to go.
I see, Prof. I see, just here bring you in, and on that point that Dr. Judge Domfe ended on, that this may have just been good ticking the box politically, but in his view, economically, the decision to scrap a number of all of these taxes and also review a couple of them may not be the way to go. Is that right?
Well, it depends on how you're looking at all these things. I think the idea is that you listen to the business environment, you listen to households, and you realize that they were not happy about certain taxes because it places some burden on them. Those burdens are inimical to the business processes, and they believe that when those taxes are removed, then the business environment will be more flexible, more friendly, and will be more productive in the sense that more people will now be adhering to the tax by complying. And increased compliance means increased revenue, so to say. So you can say that what has been done is of no benefit to the economy, is of immense benefit to the economy. It frees the business environment to engage in their businesses more friendly and more productively. So from that perspective, it is the right thing to do, and it's also an indication that when politicians are making promises which they have looked at from various point of view and have been validated before they come out to tell the people, it's a serious business, and they take it seriously. In fact, everybody knows that when they say they are going to remove taxes, people will be saying that, they are just going to deceive us. They can't do it because the revenue is very important for them. But this is a proof that when you make promise, which you have actually passed through the mill, you have to you have to fulfill it to get the benefit that the economy ought to get and the benefit that the people ought to get. It's therefore not true that because we are in need of revenue, we should allow revenue measures to choke and burden the people of when they want to pay taxes and engage in business activities.
I see, but how will these reforms and the taxes scrapped reduce the tax burden on citizens and essentially stimulate economic activity?
Well, you are paying VAT, which has a component of levies and other charges. Before, in some cases, before the VAT is applied, is definitely taking more from the people, and that's where the burden comes from. So if you now take those levies and the rest, and the VAT is left to be applied, definitely they are not going to pay less taxes to the Republic, and then become more productive in the process. So that is what it means. And with time, that is supposed to engineer more revenue mobilization through compliance and other flexibility that have been brought into the tax calibration.
One of the concerns,
yes. When you are dealing with revenue mobilization, it is not just a linear equation that you look at it that, okay, this revenue is what we are getting from this tax. So when we take it, then we lose this amount of money. So the best approach is that let the people continue to suffer, let the businesses continue to suffer, let the business continue to be choked. I do not think that is the way you manage the fiscal situation. And we are also, so to say, appreciative of the fact that we are seeing removal of taxes, which is also complemented by some number of expenditure cut measures that are being implemented. Whether we like it or not, those expenditures are being cut. Whether we like it or not, they will have a very deeper positive impression on our fiscal situation. And then, so when you look at that, you see that it's not just about cutting taxes, but it's also about cutting expenditure, so to bridge the gap as we go along. So those are good approaches that I think that we need to indicate.
I think the other issue is how much we were losing. And Dr. Domfe, here's where I'll bring you in, because that concern appears to have been settled by the finance minister's details of how we're going to make up for the revenue loss as a result of the decision to scrap these taxes, because he's looking at the tax refund account as a way of plugging this revenue loss as a result of the decision to scrap these taxes, and then also the gold board and how much revenue is going to come through when implemented. Does that answer the question and also address the concerns you had about the revenue losses due to these taxes scrapped?
Well, yes, all those things are complementary in nature. Complementary in nature because I talk about the tax cut already. If you reduce your ministries from 30 to 23, you can't tell me that there is no tax cut, revenue cut, expenditure cut in that process. If you reduce your ministers from 123 to 60, and assuming that each ministry is consuming the same amount of money, let's say 500,000 per fiscal year, and you reduce it from 123 to 60, you can't tell me that there's no expenditure cut in the process. There's huge expenditure cut in the process. There's moderation of expenditure activities across board in the country. That is also complementary. Then we also know the tax refund account that have been brought to augment the situation. We also know the reforms that have been made in the gold sector to make gold revenue more productive, so to say. We have also seen some reforms in our fiscal management in general that have been done. So all those things are complementary, and bear in mind that these flexibility that have been brought into the tax front will also be yielding gradually but progressively its fruit of enhancing revenue mobilization. So that is how you look at it.
Right. And Dr. Domfe, the same question to you as to whether the measures as announced in the budget specifically and adequately addresses the concerns that you had about revenue loss due to these taxes scrapped.
Alfred, let me thank you for that question. But before I do, would you permit me to respond to some of the issues my friend have put out there that I think I'm struggling to understand as a student of taxes? it's very strange to hear him say that the scrapping is going to rather boost revenue mobilization. You know what has been a problem to Africa and most of the small open market economies have been our reliance on indirect taxes. Elsewhere in the advanced democracies, they depend so much on direct taxes, and that to me is a way to go. Currently, as I speak with you, with over 40 million Ghanaians working, only about 2.5 million pay direct taxes, which is one of the biggest reasons why there's that problem when it comes to revenue mobilization. And so for him to link the scrapping to, excessive mobilization of resources, I think I'm struggling to see, the literature or a theory that, I don't think, I heard him right.
I do not think that you listen to
maybe
me very
it's not
well.
convincing me enough that
I
what
use
has
the
happened
word
is going to boost
complementary.
revenue
I do not say that
then
those
again,
measures
when
are
it comes
all
to expenditure
enough to address
Prof,
the
please,
situation you are
allow me
talking
to.
about. So please, if you want to quote
Please
me,
allow me to
quote
make
me
my point. You
rightly.
can
Quote me
respond.
rightly, please.
Please. When I hear people talk about expenditure cuts, we have to be very careful. I think it's too early to rejoice over the so-called expenditure cuts. If you look at 2024 budget, the total expenditure was 227 billion Ghana cedis. After the media review, they slashed it downwards to 217, billion. Right? At the end of the day, they ended up spending 279 billion. And so if you say as a government on commitment basis, I should say, on commitment basis, they ended up spending 279 billion. And now the government has reduced it to 267. This is a promise. And if you look at last year's budget, it was nowhere near, even on commitment basis, it was nowhere near 269. But they ended up spending 279. So if you sit here to say that because some ministries have been scribed, you have cut expenditure, please, let us be careful. We don't put these things out there. We are waiting to hear the budget read to us next year, and maybe by November, the third quarter, we would have heard what would have happened. Because if I look at what is happening, I don't see any expenditure cuts. It's just alarming. Some of the when expenditure at this ministry or this sector is going up, this one is going down. So some ministries have suffered huge expenditure cuts, but others have unnecessarily also seen huge budget allocations. And so we have to be very careful when we are talking about these things. And Alfred, going back to the main question, is the scrapping going to hurt the economy? I don't think so, because already we're not getting so much. And I must say that GRA has also been doing very well. Last year, we were looking forward for them to rake in total revenue of 172 billion Ghana cedis. They ended up exceeding their target, and this is one of the good news we don't normally hear. Mostly, GRA comes to tell us that they couldn't meet their revenue targets, and so they're already on point, doing very well. And talking about that, e-levy wasn't raking in so much, betting tax wasn't raking in so much, and so if you take it out today, it will not hurt the basket so much. But my concern was that it has a future, because if you look at the number of people who pay it, it was more broad-based compared to most of the prevailing taxes that only few people pay, and the tax burden is always on few people. My concern had been that if we had taken time to study the whole situation and maybe work on it in such a way that it wouldn't impact so much on the poor. Because if you are talking about the poor that we are using the name poor in scrapping this revenue, then I think the one on the import levy, to me, should have been scrapped. Because today, most of what we eat, we drink, we wear, we import, right? And so anything that is on import comes back to hurt the household. And so if you were out there and you want to protect the poor, one way to do it was also scrap the import levy. Why do you leave an import levy there and you come back to tell me that you have scrapped an e-levy? I should clap for you? No, I would have even thought that the import levy is rather the one that is affecting all households. Seriously, it's if e-levy is bad. If you look at it, if it is bad, then import levy. That particular one should also should also be looked at, my brother.
Well, gentlemen, appreciate your time on this matter, but all is said and done. These taxes have been scrapped, others modified, and as it were, reviewed and accented into law. Implementation begins in the coming days. I'm sure in the next 6 months or maybe a year after, we will be here again to review the impact analysis of this particular decision. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great. And Professor John Gatsi is the Dean of the University of Cape Coast Business School. Also, Dr. George Domfe is a Senior Lecturer, University of Ghana Economics Department, joining us on Zoom. Thank you very much. But